Welcome into another edition of Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. We're 1 month and 1 day away from football resuming as Purdue opens up the 2025 season against Ball State at Ross-Ade Stadium. But in the wake of Media Day in Vegas and camp opening up in West Lafayette on Thursday, we are going to talk lots and lots of pigskin with Tom Dienhart in this week's edition of Gold and Black Radio. But first, let's give some love to our tremendous Gold and Black sponsors that make each show possible, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans, Boiler Up, East End Grill and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort. Tee off this golf season at Sand Valley. Using their online booking platform, it's easier than ever to find availability and experience golf as it was meant to be. Conveniently located in the breathtaking dunes of central Wisconsin, Sand Valley offers a collection of award-winning courses designed by world-renowned architects that are suitable for all skill levels. Visit sandvalley.com and book your tee times online today. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's welcome on a guy that's been very busy and is just going to get more busy, I guess, because camp is about to open up. The summer break is officially over, and I don't know if there's ever really a summer break for Tom Dienhart of goldenblack.com, and he joins us now. Tom, I told you this off air. I specifically listened to your Saturday podcast with Alan, not only because it's very entertaining and informative, but I want to make sure that I just don't do the same show because, hey, Alan just talked to you and now I'm talking to you. But I will say, I heard you ask Alan if he was a Vegas guy, but I didn't hear if Tom Dienhart is a Vegas guy. Maybe not for Big Ten Media Day, but in general, is Tom Dienhart a Las Vegas guy?
I'm not, Derek. I'm not a Vegas guy. I'm not a gambler. Thank God I'm not a gambler. I got enough other problems in my life, but gambling's not one of them. I guess the one thing about Vegas, and I've only been there a couple times, the spectacle is neat, right? Yeah. All the casinos, the grandeur of them, and people watching, man. I mean, the people watching is outstanding. So you can just sit there, drink a little cappuccino or cold brew, and take in the sights of all the different visitors strolling through the casinos, Derek Schultz. Now, are you a Vegas guy? That's what I want to know now.
I'm not. I have actually spent more time in Atlantic City, which is like a trashier version of Las Vegas. But Tom, I am notoriously cheap. So it is very difficult for me to just like place a $20 bet on something because there's a threat that there's a very, a likelihood I'm going to lose that $20. So no, I'm not really a Vegas guy. I'm especially not a Vegas guy in July. I mean, that's, you talk about a rough time of the year to kind of go over to Vegas, but I did want to touch on that even, kind of as we kick off this conversation, because I do feel for the league a little bit because look, this is the bed that they've made and they're going to have to sleep on it. Right. But they have many masters to serve, including the West Coast schools now, because whether people like it or not, Oregon and Washington, USC and UCLA, they're part of the fabric of the Big Ten, as weird as it sounds. But to me, you should still cater to the majority, and just holding that event in Vegas, it just does not. I'm not just talking about us in Indiana. It just does not cater to the majority of the member institutions, and that's what kind of bothers me about it.
Someone said this is just going to be a one-off, that Indianapolis wasn't available for some reason. It's some convention that comes there once every 4 or 5 years, and that was a reason I was told why they were unable to get into Indianapolis this year. So. Yeah, I mean, the Vegas thing, like you said, it was just, out there. And like you said, Derek, the majority of the Big Ten, as we know, is obviously Midwest-centered and hard for schools to get there. No real interest in Las Vegas among the clientele there and the people who live there. But it was kind of fun for a lot of the media, I'm sure, to get out to Sin City. And they like to gamble and see some good shows. So it was definitely a unique backdrop for Big Ten football. I never would imagine, Derek, if you told me 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago that one day I would be attending Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, Nevada with Oregon and UCLA and USC and Washington, I just said, you're crazy.
Yeah, you'd say that about a lot of things, given the current landscape of just college sports in general, much less college football. Was there one major takeaway? And I don't even necessarily mean just from a Purdue lens, but maybe from a league lens, maybe even from a national perspective that, you walked out of Vegas. And I know you had quite the adventure getting back to Chicago and Lafayette, but was there one takeaway that you were thinking about on the trip home?
I think a big point is, Derek, I'm sure you followed things. Non-conference scheduling, right? Kurt Signetti talked about, for Indiana, dropping UVA and bringing in Kennesaw State, and he was now scheduling like an SEC school. That sort of created some national buzz, and I think he made a lot of good points, right? That I agree with. I think a lot of people in the Big Ten agreed with. The continuing debate on the college football playoff, too. The Big Ten wants one thing, the SEC wants another. That continues to be a big national storyline as well. Those are some of the bigger things that in my mind are popping in my head right now as far as coming out of that media day. And on a more lighter note, Derek, last year the UCLA head coach Deshaun Foster took some heat. He didn't handle himself that well on the podium. It's hard to do, right, Derek? First-time head coach, and he said some obvious things, and he sort of leaned into that this year and had some fun with it. So it was nice to see Deshaun Foster rebound and perform well on the dais, have some fun and poke some fun at himself, Derek. You always can't take yourself too seriously, and he was able to do that and have some fun with what happened last year.
Yeah, self-deprecation is my favorite form of humor for sure. And, you talk about non-conference scheduling. We were having this discussion on last week's show with Brian Newbert, and specifically we were talking about football, even though I know we lean towards hoops more with Brian. And I can see wanting to keep, the Notre Dame series is traditional. It's important to a lot of Purdue fans. I know Notre Dame people that won't say that it's important, but I do know some that it is, especially the ones that live in Indiana. It's important to them. I think where I get tripped up, Tom, is I just don't see a lot of benefit in playing Wake Forest. That's a game that can't really help you, and it can only hurt you. And so, like Indiana buying out of the Virginia game, that makes sense because Virginia is kind of like a program. And to me, it's either schedule an auto win or schedule Alabama. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of the balance that you need to find with non-conference schedule, where either you schedule a win that can really help you and a loss that can't hurt you, or just a game that you're going to roll out of bed and win no matter what.
Yeah, Purdue's done us no favors. Just the recent vintage, Derek. Syracuse, Fresno State, Nevada, Virginia Tech. Why?
Oregon State.
Oregon State was a perfect example last year too, as well. So you're exactly right. I always think too, people don't remember who you beat; they remember your final record, right? 20 years from now, you're not going to recite the Indiana non-conference schedule when you're talking about the 2024 season. You're going to talk about whatever it was, 12-1 or whatever the final record was. So in Kansas State, I always look what Bill Snyder did there in Manhattan all those years. Scheduling very soft. He caught a lot of flack for it. He built that program up, Derek Schultz. I tell you what, there's something to be said for tasting success, for getting that win, and leaving the field feeling good about yourself. And I think that's very important to do early in the season, especially for a team like Purdue, which has so many new parts this year, right? You want to taste success, win, and hopefully learn some lessons along the way. Who wants a hard-fought loss to a power team, right? I mean, you get nothing there. May as well get the win, feel good about yourself, and you know what? I think more than half of life is confidence. If you're feeling good about yourself, once that Big Ten schedule rolls around, maybe that mojo can continue then.
Yeah, optimism just feels so valuable right now, not only for the program, but just for the fan base, for everything surrounding it, right? You want to feel good about Purdue football again and the direction that's heading. And I'm trying to talk myself into this because we all know what lies ahead here for Barry Odom and what he has to do to kind of turn this thing around. And I was looking optimistically, Tom, at this roster, and look, as you said, there's a lot of unknowns. But I'm kind of going back to last year. Like, can they take this step forward from where they were last year? And I know that's not going to take much, but I was a bit of a Hudson Card apologist at times last year, and I'm not going to give him a break for everything. But his supporting cast, let's face it, was severely lacking. The wide receiver room was awful. Just the offense in general, as bad as the defense was at times, I think really it was the offense that put them in holes that they often couldn't climb out of. And if it's Ryan Brown or, regardless of who it is at quarterback, is this receiver room, plus I know you're optimistic, speaking of optimism, about this offensive line, And, your one returning starter is Devin Mockabee, right? In the backfield, is that going to give Purdue's offense and their new QB1 a bit of a boost, maybe that the offense just didn't have? It just felt like everything was DOA last year for the Purdue O.
Yeah, I mean, football always starts up front, right? At every level of the sport, Pee Wee football to the NFL. If you're not good in the trenches, you're going to have a real difficult time having a good team. And like you said, Derek, I am optimistic, especially about the offensive line for Purdue. It's bigger and it's deeper, and I think there's some talent, especially in the first unit, which should project to be the first unit, I think. That's a great start, right? Then you get to the skill position guys, and I tell you, I wish I could look you in the eye and tell you with the utmost confidence that this receiving corps is going to be great. I've got no idea. Nobody does. Given a grade of incomplete coming out of spring football, I think a lot of that was due to the quarterback play not being stellar. Didn't really get a good indication of how good the receivers that came in that first portal window are. Purdue went out in the spring and got some more receivers, Derek, led by, of course, Nitro Tuggle and Michael Jackson from Georgia. So they definitely look like they have some talent, but I guess you have to have that wait-and-see attitude. And then there's the quarterback. I like Ryan Brown a lot. I think we saw what he can do against Illinois last year in that 50-49 overtime loss in Champaign. But let's be honest, Derek, the jury's still out on him, too. Behind him is Malachi Singleton, the guy who's never started a college football game. Ben Meredith is still around. Evans Chuba. I mean, long story short, there's a lot of questions at quarterback, too. You have to hope it works out with Ryan Brown, but again, he's still very much an unproven commodity. So I guess there's that potential, there's optimism, but we still really don't know, Derek. August 30th, Ball State. Obviously, we'll get our first glimpse. And I think it helped Purdue, too, to have 3 home games to open the year. Ball State, Southern Illinois, and then USC, Derek.
Yeah.
Somehow Purdue's 2-0. Who knows? Maybe there's a chance they can ambush a USC team that I think has some questions. And I think a USC team whose head coach in Lincoln Riley probably sits on the hottest seat of anybody in the Big Ten, too.
And we've seen those trips can get weird, right? For the West Coast teams coming out. If that game's in LA, I'm we're not talking even about and it's still unlikely, don't get me wrong, in Ross-Ade that they would beat USC, but I think that's at least a conversation because of how wacky those trips were. And, even that wide receiver room, you're right, Tom, and we're doing so much of this projection on paper because we just don't know. But, man, the receiver room's got to be better than 93, 94 catches in 12 games. Yeah. And I don't think they even cumulatively came up with 1,000 yards. I mean, it was putrid last year.
I don't think they were super well coached. There was a lack of game-breaking ability, too, from a talent standpoint. I was told often the defenses could sit on these guys with zone coverages, and they weren't afraid to get beat deep. Defenses weren't afraid to get deep beat by Purdue. That made that offense very easy to defend, especially from an explosive play standpoint. So you have to hope, again, Nitro Tuggle, I think, be maybe your wide receiver one. I think Chauncey Magwood, who got here in the winter from UCF, has a chance to be a good wide receiver. Michael Jackson, another Georgia kid. Charles Ross from USC. So I think there's some guys they can work with there. And then you're going to need a mix of 6 to 8 guys, I think. Denylon Morissette being the key veteran there. A mix of 6 to 8 receivers to rotate that can at least start to stretch defenses, make them respect that deep ball so that guys like Devin Mockabee can have plenty of room to run as well.
How much do you think Purdue will benefit from the been there, done that nature of Odom and his staff? Because, not to bring up 2024 again, but even 2023, which wasn't that bad of a season. They were 4-8. They were competitive in a lot more games. In those game on the line situations, you mentioned Fresno State, Syracuse before it really got away from them. You could tell how green Walters and his staff were. I mean, that was, the youth and vibrancy was supposed to be a selling point, but it ended up being somewhat of a detriment a lot of the times in the games that Purdue actually had the chance to win. How much of an advantage is it, at least we know in this staff with all the unknowns, that they get in those situations and they're going to know how to put their team in the best position to succeed? Yeah,
I mean, you have a head coach who's been there and done that, right? 4 years at Missouri, 2016 to 19 in the SEC. He had a solid run there. And then more recently, obviously the UNLV had tenure for the last 2 years, Derek. walked into a situation at UNLV, a program notorious for underachieving, for losing, for struggling. He flipped the script there. 2 years, got them to back-to-back Mountain West championship games, did so by just tearing the roster apart. Down to the studs, brought in 50 portal transfers each year. That's a familiar story, right? We saw Barry Odom do that then this last offseason at Purdue. So my point is, he's been there and done that, as you said, and he knows how to reconstruct these rosters on the fly. Now, the Big Ten is not the Mountain West, but still, you have to trust Barry Odom knows what he's doing, and I think the track record shows that he has a very good idea of how to put a roster together and be competitive on the fly.
We're going to see that roster starting later this week, heading into camp. Give me a position group. Let's take quarterback out of the equation. Give me a position group besides quarterback that you're most intrigued by seeing again, getting another look at again coming up here in a couple of days.
I think the biggest mystery for me is the secondary. No real idea what to expect back there. Tony Grimes is going to be one starting cornerback. A UNLV transfer who was out at Big Ten Media Day, so count on that being one sure thing. I think Kadari Hines, an Indianapolis area kid, has a good chance to be another cornerback. The safety spots look wide open. Derek, I've got no idea how the secondary is going to come together. They lost, I think, 12 or 13 D-backs through the portal, brought in about just as many through the portal, and just a lot of moving parts back there. And again, that was a unit that wasn't tested very well in the spring either by the wide receivers of Purdue or the quarterback. So that's a big key for me. That's one area on this squad that maybe is the biggest question mark for me, is the secondary and how well it's going to come together for Purdue this fall.
And how they look at finally injury-wise. I think Barry Odom had given an update earlier this week back in Las Vegas, including on George Burhan.
Yeah, George is healthy, ready to go. And otherwise, there's no key players, according to Barry Odom, who won't be ready to go. So they're in great shape health-wise, which is all you can ask, right? And George is the big key. People tell me George is the best player on the team, regardless of position. Wow. He could be a real special athlete. We've seen glimpses of it when he can stay healthy. A long, lithe athlete with speed, a high school hurdler, and a kid who could be a real best friend to any quarterback, especially on those third and eights when you're trying to move the chains, and in the red zone as well. So, yeah, they got to keep George healthy. George could be a key asset if this offense is going to be as good as they want. I think George is going to have to be a star player for it, without a doubt.
Well, he's a heck of an athlete at Mount Vernon, I can say that. He was a star in several different sports and ended up choosing football, and we hope that materializes on the college level as well. Tom, thanks so much. We're looking forward to camp and everything else, and looking forward to doing 2 of these shows a week with you coming up when the season begins. Thanks so much, pal.
Thank you, Derek.
That's Tom Dienhart. You can check out Tom's work, of course, always goldenblack.com, and follow him on social media for the latest via X and the best Purdue football coverage around, bar none. What Tom brings to the table, he does a fantastic job covering this team, and trust me, it's a heavy lift considering that this roster. I mean, we mentioned just the secondary and the defensive back room. 11 or 12 of them gone, 11 and 12 of them in. It's much more challenging to be on the beat, as Tom is, in this current state of college football, especially for a rebuilding program like Purdue. Want to give a final thank you to our tremendous sponsors that make Golden Black Radio possible, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans, East End Grill and Ripple & Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette, the Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort. Tee off this golf season at Sand Valley. Go to sandvalley.com and book your tee times online today. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Of course, you can leave a positive review. If you would go ahead and take the time to do that, everybody here at the Golden Black team would really appreciate it. And whatever podcast platform that you're listening on and utilizing, thanks so much for tuning us in every single week in all of our content. The Saturday simulcast, Football Friday shows are going to resume coming up here. And geez, just a couple of weeks. It's hard to believe, guys, that after a long wait, I mean, I know a lot of you were there too. I was there that snowy night in Bloomington, and you laugh so you don't start crying, right? 66-0, and you're thinking to yourself, man, it's the end of November and it's 8 months, and there was the big black hole of the unknown of what was going to happen with this program. And now pretty soon we can officially kind of turn the page on that and look forward to the next chapter of Purdue football under Barry Odom, and hopefully a more fruitful one than what it's been these last 24 months or so. But looking forward to that. And of course, we're going to be with you for all the best coverage right here at goldandblack.com. My name's Derek Schultz. Appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you again next week right here on Gold and Black Radio.